Welcome to the Viva Vegan Podcast. Our guest this month is Dr Sailesh Rao, the founder and executive director of Climate Healers, a non-for-profit organisation dedicated to healing the Earth's climate. With a PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford University, he spent 2 decades developing high-speed signal processing technologies, contributing significantly to the advancement of internet communications. Dr. Rao is the author of 4 books: Carbon Dharma, The Occupation of Butterflies; Carbon Yoga, The Vegan Metamorphosis; Animal Agriculture is Immoral; and A Pinky Promise. He's also an executive producer of several documentaries: The Human Experiment, Cowspiracy, The Sustainability Secret, and more. I'm here with Dr. Sailesh Rao. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Just for our viewers and listeners, if they haven't perhaps heard of you before, could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I am a systems engineer by profession, and I used to work on the internet back in the 90s. And in 2005, I happened to see Vice President Al Gore's presentation on TV. And I was so shocked. I told my wife, if half of what he's saying is true, I'm wasting my time. She said, if you think it's that important, why don't you look into it? So,
Was that back in sort of 2006?
2005 December, and by 2006 February, March timeframe, I told her we have to close our company and focus on this full time.
Wow, I mean, and your company previous to that had been very successful, hadn't it?
Right. Yeah. We worked on Gigabit Ethernet, so which is making the internet 10 times faster and more robust. That was in the 1990s. 1996 is when I started the project. And my company got acquired by Level 1, which got acquired by Intel. And so the product we did was for Intel Corporation. So it was on every motherboard.
Wow.
By 2003. And we sold 150 million units the first year.
Wow.
And the internet just skyrocketed, So yeah, and then I quit Intel and I started another company to do the same thing 10 times faster. So we were doing 10 gigabit Ethernet. And this time, when I was doing gigabit Ethernet, people didn't know what the internet was. There was even an article in Newsweek saying, what is this internet? Who's going to read things on the internet? Who's going to buy stuff off the internet? It's going nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Right? That was in 1996. So I'm just giving you the background of what, the situation that we were in. And by 2003, I overheard someone say, I cannot live without the internet.
Wow. It was quick escape, wasn't it?
Yes.
I was going to ask you about that as well, because obviously now we've got a lot of AI coming into things, and, Chat GTP is the obvious one. GTP, yeah, GPT.
Yeah.
That's the obvious one.
Right.
But from an environmental perspective, they say that the amount of power that it takes to run this, it's kind of unprecedented. And I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Well, the ChatGPT is basically taking all the data on the internet, and you ask it a query, it goes and looks it up, and then it tells you what the best answer would be, right? So it's trying to figure out the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of effort to do that. So it initially does a modeling of the truth, and then it does an extrapolation to tell you based on the question you asked, right? So it takes a lot of energy. So ChatGPT queries typically take about 10 times the energy that Google search would do, right? So it's like instead of Google search, if you go to ChatGPT and ask the same question, you're using 10 times as much energy, and hopefully you get a better answer, but you don't know.
In terms of the sustainability of that, right? Because if this is going to be, commonplace in workplaces, and I know a lot of people are programming it to kind of, use their own information.
Right. Uh-huh.
But long term, do you know what the kind of effects of that would be?
It would be horrible.
That's my assume, but I wanted to hear from an expert.
Right. Yeah. So, but we have to start by looking at why are we querying ChatGPT? Is there what is the purpose of humanity, first of all? You start from that, because right now, Donella Meadows had done an estimate. She's one of the top systems engineers on the planet. She used to be. She passed away, unfortunately. She said that 99% of human activities today are unnecessary and wasteful. So it's just frivolous questions we're asking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if our purpose is to restore the planet, and we do have fire going on the planet, okay, so there's some serious work to be done. And for that work, if you ask ChatGPT a question, I'd say it's a worthwhile, because ChatGPT will hopefully, AI, the promise of AI is that it will sift out all the nonsense and tell you the truth.
Interesting. But then it's got to be used for the right things, and who determines what's right? And this is where kind of decision makers and policy makers can use it to their advantage, perhaps.
Right now, they are not.
Yeah, no, true.
Right now, we are living in a make-believe world, and that's the book I wrote,
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about this? This is the 5th book now that you've written, is that right?
Right.
And what's the book called?
The book is called There is a Planet B. So it's which means that there is a planet A as well. But planet B is the world of planet A turned upside down, where instead of lying to each other, we tell the truth. Instead of teaching children myths, we tell them the truth. So you can see the common theme is tell the truth.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And so we have a lot of make-believe truths right now in the system. So because, you look at, and we were actually listening to Gary Francione at the Oxford Literary Festival. And Gary makes this compelling case that if you're not vegan, you're either completely confused or you're morally corrupt.
Yes.
Okay? He makes a very compelling case. And then you ask, why aren't people following that? Why isn't the world completely vegan if that's the case? And you realize it's not because people are completely confused or morally corrupt. It's just that they have a worldview that's built on foundational myths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They believe things that are not true.
Yes.
Okay? So you have to identify what are those things that they believe that are not true and help them fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a complete re-education program we have to do.
Yeah, there's been misinformation for a long time, and we know that the dairy and the meat industries are substantially backed. And there's a lot of cognitive dissonance as well with people. They'll hear it, but it doesn't seem to register. Or they're separate from it a lot of the time.
Right.
So I guess that's where the challenge lies, isn't it?
Right. So I'm a systems engineer. So I look at why do systems behave the way they do, and why is the system now promoting animal agriculture when it knows that animal agriculture is causing so many problems around the world, right? Why is there subsidies? Why are there subsidies for animal agriculture? And so I try to identify, okay, what are the foundations on which this system is built, and what is the objective function of the system? What are the goals of the system? Because until you change the goals, you're not going to change the system, because everyone is optimizing for that goal, right? So I'm trying to analyze and then figuring out how do you transform this system to a system that actually works for everybody. Okay. So I've identified 4 foundational myths, okay, of planet A. I call it planet A. And planet B is, of course, the exact opposite of planet A. So this is why it's flipped out, right? It's upside down. And the whole book is upside down, actually.
Oh, is it?
Yes. It's because we use Glenn Mercer's quote in the back saying, "The world is not such a terrible place as long as you look at it wrong."
Mm.
So you have to read the book wrong, like this,
I like this.
And so the 4 foundational myths on planet A are, number 1, protein is only found in animal foods. You know that.
Yeah, I know.
And we drill that into children's heads. And we don't do it so that scientists who write the books, the science textbooks, they have plausible deniability. What that means is that they really didn't tell a lie. They told the truth that protein is in animal foods. But protein is also in plant foods.
Absolutely, yes.
They just didn't tell you that.
Yes.
So it's a myth created by omission. Omission of the truth. And so we need to now tell everybody that all plant foods have complete protein. They have all amino acids, not only the essential amino acids, but also the non-essential ones. How do we know this? We have a database compiled by the University of Minnesota with 11,000 plant foods and all the amino acid composition of each food. And you can see that there's not a single food that doesn't have all 20 amino acids. Okay, so it has they all have it in different amounts, different proportions, but the meat industry has convinced academia that the right way to measure the efficacy of protein is to look at how fast your muscle grows when you eat that food. Okay, and when you use that metric, you will see that animal protein is better. Why? Because it's closest to our muscle. Because it's just like us, You're eating the muscle of another animal who's just like us. And this is why it's closest to our muscle. And so it grows the muscle fastest. But you don't only have muscles in your body. You have eyes, you have nose, you have teeth, you have skin, you have all kinds of cells that have to be replaced. So the protein requirement for the human body depends on what kind of activities you're doing and how your organs are decaying and how you're replenishing them and so on. It's not exactly muscle cells that you need to eat. So when you eat plants, you get a variety of amino acids and your body knows what to eat. You eat whole plants. And this is the first myth. And they created that myth by just associating protein and animal foods. Protein, animal foods in textbooks throughout. Even medical doctors come out of with a degree not knowing that protein is found in plants.
Yeah, there's a lot of marketing around that, isn't there? And they target, you see it's a lot of gym goers and fitness, which is, and it's all always high protein from this, from animals, from chicken, lots of chicken. And we know it's not the truth. Truth by omission, like you said.
Truth by omission. It's a lie by omission. So it's a myth is a lie wrapped in a truth. Okay, so there's a truth to that, but there is a lie built into it. And so we now have to tell the whole world, somehow get everyone to know that all plant foods have all amino acids, have complete protein. And the largest animals on the planet are eating only plants and are growing really, really fast.
Yes, true.
Right?
Yeah. So what's the second?
Okay. The second is, I'm sure you know this too, calcium is only found in dairy foods. And it's a foundational myth because to me, dairy is the foundation of this system of oppression that we have built. We are oppressing a mother and her baby. We're taking the baby away from the mother. We're stealing the mother's milk. And we think we need to do it because that's where the calcium is. And we are taught that in schools, calcium is milk, calcium, milk. And people think that calcium is only found in milk. When in reality, if you eat enough calories, you will get enough calcium, no matter where the calories came from. If you eat only plant foods and get all the calories from plant foods, you'll get enough calcium. So Dr. John McDougall made this statement, right? That if you eat enough calories, you'll get enough calcium. And people challenged him. They gave him this particular food, if you eat, you won't get enough calcium. And he said, who the heck eats just that for 2,000 calories?
Yeah, it's a balanced diet you have to have.
So then he modified it a bit, saying if you eat enough calories on a natural diet, you'll get enough calcium. Okay, so that's the second myth you have to turn into a truth. Because we have to build this planet B, and the third myth on planet A is that human well-being necessitates endless economic growth. That's foundational to planet A. So even though we are consuming, 10 times as much as what the planet can support, you still need to grow.
Yeah.
Right?
It doesn't stop, does it?
It doesn't stop.
It's completely taking all the... Was it minimalism that you discuss, where you have to give back more than you take from
Right.
diet, which is common sense, you say.
Yes. If you want a planet to thrive, you have to give more than you take.
Yeah. Seems very simple.
Right. And this is what James Lovelock said too, right? He said, that's it. If the earth improves as a result of human presence, we will flourish. If it does not, we will perish. And it's rapidly going in the wrong direction. And this is why I said there's a fire on the planet. There's a 6-alarm fire going on the planet. And we now need to put out that fire urgently.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that can put out that fire effectively is veganism. It's that simple. We eat healthy food, healthy plant foods, and be kind to all life. The planet will thrive.
It's true. It was at the 9 planetary boundaries
Right.
that you spoke about before, that we have to live within in order to kind of prosper, to continue to live.
Right. Yeah. So that it comes in, along with this myth, right? So if you really want to address the 9 planetary boundaries, you have to overcome this myth. You don't need endless economic growth for our well-being. Okay. So I say the correct truth corresponding to this myth is that human well-being necessitates a sense of purpose. If you have a sense of purpose, you'll wake up every morning and you have an objective to meet. So you'll be busy working on that objective and you'll be happy. Right? If it's an objective that's larger than yourself, you'll be happy doing that. So I wake up every morning saying, I need to create a vegan world. And that's my job, and as a systems engineer, I need to design the foundations of the vegan world. This is the foundations of Planet B. So that's that sense of purpose you need to have. And I say, if we don't get a sense of purpose as a species right now, we never will.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is one of the problems at the moment, is people kind of have lost that. They go for quick dopamine hits, whether that's because of mobiles and scrolling, or fast fashion and shopping, and these things are just very removed from a purpose, like you say, or finding the truth or meaning.
Right. Finding meaning in life, search for meaning. So I say, search for meaning is over. There is meaning now in your life. Why? Because if we don't restore the life support systems of the planet to within the green zone, you're going to die. So don't you have a sense of purpose now?
Yeah. Life or death. Go.
Right. I mean, it is not only us, it's all life can perish, right? So we are causing this greatest mass extinction in the planet's history, not only human history. And so it's happening so fast, even compared to what we see in the fossil record happened in the past. It's happening much faster now. And so I say we have a sense of purpose and we have meaning in our life. In fact, as soon as we admitted that we are changing the climate of the planet and we are impacting the life support systems, like the ozone layer we were impacting, and then we are impacting the aerosols, the oxygen, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the carbon dioxide. I mean, we're impacting life support systems on the planet. As soon as we admitted that, and we admitted that like 3 decades ago, we automatically had a sense of purpose, some meaning in life. Because our job is to maintain these life support systems within their bounds. No one else is going to do it.
No.
Right? We cannot expect the tiger to do it or the lion to do it. Humans have to do this. So that's our job. And so my granddaughters told me, do your job.
Absolutely. I mean, you've written a book, haven't you? Pinky Promise, which was about, I think it was 2026, you were hoping for an almost fully vegan world.
Correct, yeah.
For the future of your granddaughter and generations to follow.
It's for the future of all life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my calculations are showing that if we don't have a largely vegan world by the end of next year, we are going to trigger a lot of nonlinear feedback loops from which it will be impossible to pull back. Okay, so it's critical. And as vegans, I'm saying, if you have to go and feed everybody you know
Yes.
healthy vegan food in order to get them to go vegan, please do it.
Yes.
It's that urgent. Okay, it's that urgent. So if we have to do it as a community, let's get, healthy food being given away in churches, in mosques, in temples, in synagogues, in places of worship, in community centers. Just let it be known that there is healthy food available to you to eat at any time. Okay, and the job of the community is to make sure that that steady flow of food happens.
Yeah.
If we do that, we will completely upend Planet A.
Interesting. There's a lot of pressure. I don't know if it's too little, too late. I think personally it is, not to sound, depressive. But we have in the UK especially, a lot of universities they're really pushing for plant-based diets within the canteens. There's pressure on hospitals, on prisons, and the education system because, as you know, you can see studies on children with kind of behavioral disruptive behaviors, and it's the food often that they're eating. It's just sugar and it's, bad foods. And it does have an effect on people's kind of well-being and psyche as well.
Right.
But there are huge changes, I think, that need to happen systematically, in order for us to get there.
Yeah. There are huge changes that have to happen, but don't expect it to happen on Planet A. That's the point I'm trying to make, because Planet A is stuck in that. It's a system that's built around these false foundations. And no system, no huge system can be transformed from within, because people are stuck, in the roles they're playing, the game they've been playing. The game of money is driving that system, because the game of money is what makes people say that economic growth is necessary, because they're running a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, it's like a lack, isn't it? It's that mindset of lack. And it doesn't work. I mean, there's an abundance, as you know, of everything. The planet provides that.
Right.
But we've got to stop what we're doing, which is just
See, it started off when there was true lack.
Yeah.
Okay. The game started when there was true lack, and people are trying to say, okay, who's going to survive? Who's going to die off? And say we were playing this dog-eat-dog game, and literally, people are going hungry right now, right? Hungry and dying. 800 million people are hungry at any given time, and 9 million people are dying of hunger and hunger-related causes every year, even though there's an abundance of food. Why? Because we are playing the same game. So we started that game when there was true lack, and now with that game we have created abundance. So now we need to change the game so that we are playing a game where we know there is abundance.
It's illusionary, isn't it? All of
Right. Yeah. So because the game of money is a game, and I say that we play games and we tell stories, and that's how we coordinate our actions among millions and billions of us. Right. So if we tell the right stories and we play the right games, that coordination will be towards creating a planet that's thriving. Right now we are just saying, how much can I grab? Everyone is trying to grab as much as they can, and the planet is dying. And we have created fires on the planet. I said there are 6 alarm fire going on the planet. The 6 planetary boundaries that we have transgressed.
Absolutely. But you said, adopting a vegan diet actually can turn back 6 of those.
All 6 of them.
Yeah.
All 6
even
of them.
the water, right?
Even the water, yeah.
Yeah.
All 6 of them can be reversed. At least you'll be pulling them towards the green zone if the world goes vegan. Okay? And it's not just vegan diet. Veganism to me is more than a diet. It's an ethical stance. It's saying that if I can live without hurting animals, I should. And so far we have been thinking we cannot live without hurting animals because protein is only found in meat, in animal foods. The calcium is only found in dairy foods. Those two lies are so foundational to the planet A system. Because people think that protein is only found in animal foods and calcium is only found in dairy foods, they're trying to consume plenty of calcium, plenty of milk, and plenty of meat, and causing hunger at the bottom. Because the food is now being fed to the animals as opposed to the people who need the food.
True. It's a very strange system, isn't it? It's like you were saying at the start, when you realise that the world's upside down.
Right.
It
Yes.
makes it is a strange sort of system.
Well, it's actually the same colonial system. This is why, you know, I say that the corporations, the first major corporation was the English East India Company.
Oh yes, it was.
Right? And that corporation was built around addiction. So they were mainly growing poppy and then creating opium from that, manufacturing opium, and then forcing the Chinese people to smoke the opium. They get addicted, and that's how they were making their profits, right? So that's the first major addiction. But it was, and they realized then, if we can get people addicted to things, they keep coming back for more.
Yes.
So you get a steady stream of income. So how do you grow the corporation? Well, get more addictions going. So then they went after sugar, oil, tobacco, anything that's addictive. Tea, coffee became a product of the company, right? And then the company supposedly dissolved in 1858.
Interesting.
After the first war of independence in India, right? The Indians rebelled and the British Army had to come in and quell the rebellion. And then the company supposedly dissolved and handed over their entire assets.
Sure. Of course they did.
There you go. Yeah. Now you're getting it, right? Yeah. Handed over their entire assets to the British public.
Mm-hmm. No.
No.
No, they like to keep the control and the money in circulation.
They just melted into the shadows.
Yeah.
And I really think they're still running the place, okay? Running the whole world. And so it's really one large corporation running the whole world and trying to get everybody addicted into compulsive behaviors so that the economy can keep growing, so that they can keep the Ponzi scheme going.
Yeah. Oh, you see this all the time with healthcare, for example, and the drugs that are available, and then if price suddenly goes up. But America, you're in Arizona, so you probably know a lot more about this, but
yeah,
the healthcare system there is very broken.
Oh yeah, America consumes like half the pharmaceuticals in the world, 5% of the population.
And it's the things like depression a lot of the time, isn't it? And it's like, hang on a minute.
Right. Almost half of Americans are consuming antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications or illegal drugs on a regular basis. So it's affecting the mental health, the physical health, the spiritual health, the emotional health of all human beings. This addiction-based economic model. Okay, it's completely an addiction-based economic model. This is why we convince children to consume candy and sugar at an early age. So we position these candies at eye level for children in supermarkets throughout the world, so that they see that and say, I want it. And then the parents have to buy it and give it to them. And they then become addicted. Why do we do this? Do we hate our children?
No, it's true. Is it McDonald's doesn't sell food? It sells, what is it, to children? Happiness? It markets happiness to children. You're like, children are quite happy, generally speaking. But it's interesting that they don't even advertise the food. It's the idea, right? And
they use clowns, to attract children. So it's all about, and McDonald's, if you think about what McDonald's depends on, cheap beef, cheap milk, right? Where does that come from? Where does cheap beef come from? From milk dairy cows. So when we consume milk, we are paying for the cow on a daily basis. And then when that cow is finished giving milk, or her production declines, she's like a production engine, right?
Yeah.
When her production declines, she's chopped up and turned into ground beef. And that's the source of McDonald's beef. So all fast food places are basically preying on the remains of cows that supposedly ethical vegetarians were consuming milk from. Okay, so it's a big
Ponzi scheme.
It's a huge Ponzi scheme. It's just, it completely does not work anymore, right? So once we know that, we say, how do you now create a system that actually works? And you cannot do it by tweaking the old one. You really have to build a new one. Build a new one with the right foundations, right? So this one should be based on human well-being necessitates a sense of purpose, meaning in life. And right now there is a purpose, which is put out the fire on the planet first. And then we'll rebuild the home, So when your home is on fire, you focus on that.
Yeah.
You don't say, this is the way I drink my coffee, this is the way I have my breakfast. No, there's a fire in your home. Focus on that first.
No, that's interesting. You've kind of got this message across as well in lots of different ways. I mean, you've written books that we've touched on, but you've also co-produced a lot of documentaries as well. Like Cowspiracy, Christspiracy, I loved that recently. What the Health. I mean, how did you kind of, going back to it, how did you kind of get involved in documentary making as well?
Well, I wrote books first. Yeah. And then I realized that I was not able to convey the books that I was writing were more like technical books. I was saying, look, here is my understanding, and you can see I was coming at it from an engineer's perspective. And it appeals to intellectuals. They understand it and they say, oh yeah, no, I'm going to go vegan now because of this. But then I realized that documentaries, you reach millions of people easily. And in just an hour and a half, you're able to convey a lot of information visually instead of just through words.
Yeah.
So I became an executive producer of lots of documentaries, focused just on this purpose, right? Trying to get people to understand how changing our lifestyle is central to the transformation that's required. And but then I've gotten back to writing books again.
Yeah, great.
So I wrote The Pinky Promise, this is the book about the stories about my granddaughter and me. And she illustrated it.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Yeah, she and her mother illustrated it. And so it sort of tells people how simple it really is. You have to look at the world from a child's perspective. And you automatically will be living in a way that's compatible with the planet if you did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. For you then, I mean, when you kind of first became vegan, was it the environmental aspect that was your routine? Because we hear a lot from people from the animal side.
Right.
The environmental is growing, obviously, because of the world we're in it right now. But yeah, how old were you and what was the sort of story behind that?
Well, I was 48.
48, yeah.
So I was fully grown.
Yeah.
And wondering, why is the planet dying? And I was reading all these papers, scientific papers that were explaining things to me. And the scientific papers are saying that my lifestyle was not that destructive. I was vegetarian, lacto-vegetarian. So it's only a little bit worse than vegan. Yes, those are the kinds of papers I was reading. And then I went to Rajasthan in India and I saw this forest. And there was a fence. To the right of the fence was lush green forest. And to the left was barren land. And I could see all these old dairy cows walking around eating anything new that was growing on the ground. And these were cows who had stopped giving milk. And the villagers were letting them live out their lives. And I realized that as an ethical vegetarian, I was causing more harm than someone who eats meat. And I had this sense of shame, and I realized this. Because when you think about it, it's not that hard to understand. If you don't want to kill the cow is going to live for 20 years. Okay, if you don't kill the male cows are going to live for 20 years. And they're going to be eating. And when they eat, there is nothing left for the deer to eat. And the deer dies. When the deer dies, the tiger dies. So literally I was watching the forest die in front of my eyes because of my consumption of dairy. So I went vegan on the spot.
Yeah. And it's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of vegetarians because they think they're doing the right thing, and then that's it. I mean, I was the same. I was vegetarian for about 10. And I didn't really think about it after that because I was so young. And it was years later that I discovered veganism. And you're like, oh God, you've had your eyes closed. Want to admit it or not, you had your eyes closed. Because all those compelling arguments to go vegetarian initially, times that by 10. And it is hard. I think it is hard for a lot of vegetarians to admit that.
I know. I mean, it was hard for me to admit, so I don't blame anyone for what's going on. But I went vegan on the spot. I had this sense of shame.
Yeah.
And so I realized that I was given a gift by my mother that I could see something and switch instantly because of what she did for me. Okay. And I was able to welcome negative feelings inside of me. So when you get a negative feeling, it's your internal compass saying there is something misaligned within you. And if you don't welcome it, if you try to avoid negative feelings, then you will never fix it.
Right? Or it'll get worse.
It'll only get worse. Yeah. So that was what happened. And I welcomed that sense of shame, and I speak about it openly. And I resolved that I'm going to go vegan, and I'm sorry for being blind for 48 years, because I was lacto-vegetarian for 48 years of my life.
I think you've more than made up for that.
Well,
so far.
Trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying. And then I thought, how am I going to give up my curd rice? How am I going to give up my pizza and my pedas? I love my milk sweets. And within a week, I realized it's not that hard.
Yeah.
So I said, give yourself a week, 3 weeks, or 2 weeks, and then do it strictly for 2-3 weeks. You'll discover it's not that hard.
And it's like breaking the habit as well, isn't it? It only takes so long before you can break a habit, and it becomes, you can bring something else in, and it becomes part of your life or your routine.
Right, yeah. So I went through, I say there are 4 portals to veganism. First is environment is one. That's the one I went through. The next is ethics. That's when you see what's happening to animals. And if you watch Earthlings or Dominion, you will see. And it's horrible. Yeah. So that's what drives. So I'd say that drives more people than probably even the environment. Mm-hmm. The third is health, because it impacts your health when you eat something that's not good for you. And so a lot of people come to veganism for health. But the fourth portal, not many people know this, is through spirituality. Because you want to be connected to life. And you realize that eating animals disconnects you from life, disconnects you from the truth. So that's the fourth portal. But no matter which portal you come through to veganism, ultimately you will see all 4.
Yeah, I agree. Because you do one, you start making changes, you become more aware.
Right.
You pick up information, you start thinking differently. The spirituality one's very interesting. I'm always surprised when there's yoga teachers who aren't vegan.
Right.
And you're like, but how? Because you're talking about being connected and tuning in, and everything's connected, right? So then what's this? It's strange. I also think Ed's very good about that. He speaks obviously about even when you're consuming meat, the fact it's been tortured and killed, and you're taking that into yourself. And it's a very interesting argument.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And more people seem to be opening up to that. I found the spirituality aspect as, in whatever guise that might take. There's a lot in the news now about people finding Christianity again, or people who are becoming much more open, or just generally there seems to be a bit of a change in.
Absolutely. See, I see the spread of yoga throughout the world is a sign that this turning over, this portal of spirituality is opening up. Because more and more people are seeking that connection, that union. Yoga is literally union, right? That's what it means. It's yoke. It's yoking together. But that separation is actually a delusion. You are never separated. You've always been connected. So yoga is just opening up that delusion, telling you there is, you've always been connected. You've always been part of Mother Nature. And Mother Nature has been using you.
Yes. Yeah.
She has her own mad plans, if you think about it.
I love that though, because it ties into lots of different fields. I mean, even Gnosticism, it's about the idea of being connected and within. It comes from within, right? So you're the change that you project. And yeah, it's very interesting. And, even with the meditation part of things, it's all about connecting, isn't it? And everything. It's...
Yeah, meditation is literally about being able to observe yourself and having compassion for yourself, and then understanding that you are part of nature, that you belong. So I tell people everyone belongs. Everyone belongs everywhere. Don't let anyone tell you don't belong here because you have the wrong nose, the wrong skin color or whatever. No, you belong everywhere on planet Earth. Okay, and it's that sense of belonging that grounds you. And then from there, you can then say, okay, how do I contribute to making this transformation happen?
That's very interesting. In terms of the next I know you're in the UK at the moment. You're doing quite a lot of talks and
Right. Yeah.
What have you kind of got planned for the sort of next 12 months?
Yeah, I am focused on the fourth foundational myth.
Yes.
Okay. The fourth foundational myth was actually started 30 years ago. I mean, I'm watching it happen, watching a lie being created. And that is, fossil fuel burning is the leading cause of climate change. First of all, climate change is not even the worst problem we are facing. Okay? It's not even the loudest alarm. Of the 6-alarm fire, it's the 4th loudest alarm. There are 3 others that are louder. Number 1 is loss of biodiversity. Okay? Because everything you do impacts biodiversity. And wild animals are dying in front of our eyes at such a fast pace that we have to go vegan by the end of next year to address that. Okay? That's the worst alarm that's going on. The second worst alarm is chemical pollution on the planet is killing a lot of wild animals. A lot of animals are being killed. A lot of us are dying from chemical pollution. We don't even know it. We get cancer, we think it's, I don't know where it came from, and then you die. And we are pouring 220 billion tons of chemicals into the environment.
Oh, God.
For our industrial processes, from our industrial processes. So this is the waste that the corporation is dumping into the environment every year.
It's insane, the amount, just trying to comprehend that.
It's about 30 elephants per person.
It's absolute insanity, isn't
it? It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not everybody is using 30 elephants per person. So the people at the top are using what? 100 elephants? 200 elephants? And these are chemicals that are going out into the environment and they don't go away. They stick around. So next year you add another 220 billion. So you're compounding the problem. Now what happens to those chemicals? Well, they're in the water. They're in the air. They come down in the rain and they're absorbed by trees and plants. And plants are soaking them up. And then we feed the plants to the animals. And the animals are soaking them up in their bodies. And animals have a hard time getting rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Plants are soaking them up and holding them. So eventually, so that the water that goes out of the plant that's transpired from the leaves is pure. It tries to purify it. Okay. And it's soaking all the chemical pollution and storing it in its stalks and its trunks and its branches. And people then, we feed the entire plant to the animal and the animal gets that in her body. So it's there in the milk. Then we take the milk and we concentrate it into cheese. You get a concentrated dose of this chemical pollution. So if you look at how the chemical pollution works its way up the food chain, you wouldn't touch animal foods.
No.
It's getting more and more toxic every year. Okay, I would say, eat fruits because they have been purified. The water has been purified before it comes to the fruit. Eat vegetables. Eat the tops of leaves, the top leaves of plants. Don't eat the whole plant. Try to eat just the top of the plant. So that's how you minimize chemical pollution intake into your body. So we have to do this and then clean up. And how do you clean up? I say if the world goes vegan, we are going to release 40% of the land back to nature, as well as the entire ocean back to nature. And then on that 40% of the land, you can restore the 3 trillion trees that we cut. So there used to be 6 trillion trees on the planet, now there are only 3 trillion trees. When we restore the 3 trillion trees, restore the original forest that used to be there, the trees will soak up the chemical pollution and store it in their trunks. Then you have to stop putting another 220 billion tons. Why are we pouring so much chemical pollution into the environment? Because we think that the earth is infinite. And so engineers are being taught, create these processes and throw that waste out. So our education system is churning out engineers who are producing all these chemical pollution in the processes they design. So we have to completely revamp our education. Okay, teach people how do you create products without pouring so much pollution. If you cannot, well, minimize the amount of consumption you have to do on that product, because ultimately the chemical pollution has to be within a certain limit. Otherwise, the planet cannot thrive. So that's the second worst, second loudest alarm going on the planet. The third is nitrogen and phosphorus. It's not even climate change.
Okay.
Nitrogen and phosphorus. You didn't know about that,
I didn't
right?
know. I would have got climate change and then.
No, nitrogen and phosphorus pollution is killing more animals than climate change. So it's impacting more wildlife. So basically it comes from pouring fertilizers to grow crops to feed animals, mainly to feed animals. And then that fertilizer, 99% of that fertilizer runs off in the water, goes into the river. And in the river, it sucks up all the oxygen because it stimulates plant growth at the bottom of the river beds. And that sucks all the oxygen out of the water. And then the fish die. So we have dead zones in rivers and mouths of rivers in the ocean. So huge dead zones where the fish have just died. And that's from nitrogen and phosphorus pollution.
With that biodiversity loss as well, it's not just the fish, is it? It has like you say, it's the chain of events and sequences that follow.
Yeah, it's a cascade effect, right? So if there is no fish there, then the other fish that eat the fish die off. And so, we are impacting biodiversity this way. So that's the third worst. And then comes climate change, is the fourth worst. But climate change has a lot of nonlinear feedback loops that are threatening to trigger, like the Arctic melting, like the ocean circulation stopping. If it stops, then it's going to be really cold in the UK, really cold in Europe. And it'll be extremely warm in the tropics. So it's the flip, right? Because ultimately, the energy on the planet is increasing. But if some regions are cold, then other regions are going to get hot.
Yeah.
Hotter.
Absolutely.
Hotter.
And then they're going to be migration crisis, or of course, some people need displacement and they need somewhere to live. And
right. Yeah.
We're going to see a whole problem with that as well.
So all these problems are being exacerbated by just continuing with our system as it is on planet A. So, so that's the fourth worst, climate change. And there are 7 nonlinear feedback loops that can be triggered between 1 and 2 degrees Celsius. We're already at 1.5.
Yeah.
I mean, not 1.5 officially, but we have hit 1.5 in 2024. We've gone over it. They're waiting to average it over 7 years before he says 1.5. I know.
Waste more time.
Waste more time.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Right.
Oh, sorry.
I know, you're getting frustrated with it.
I know, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Why is doing an average over 7 years? It's increasing where, we're at melting point. Stop it immediately.
See, the average in order to make sure that it's not a fluke. It's not one-off and it'll go back down. But we know that this one that went above 1.5 is going to be staying because it was caused by, most likely caused by the lack of sulfur over the ocean, sulfur dioxide over the ocean. So that's where the fourth one comes in, the fourth foundational myth. I have to tell you about that. But before I tell you about that, I'll tell you the other two that we have violated, right? Next is land system change. So we have taken over so much of the land for ourselves. There's hardly any land left for wild animals, and they're dying. So the estimate is that of the ice-free land area of the planet, only 9% is original forests.
9%.
Only 9%. That's it. So the wild animals are down by more than 90% from what they used to be on the planet, right? And they're asking now, do you want us to be around or not?
Yeah.
Right? And they're willing to go away if we don't want them. But if they go away, we are going to die.
Yeah.
So we need them for our sake. Not just for, not just to be altruistic. Yes. We need to survive. Our children need to survive. For that, we need an ecosystem that works, that's functional. And I cannot imagine an ecosystem with just humans and cockroaches and that would work, right? So we need the biodiversity for us to thrive. And this is why we need to give them back the land, some land. So I say if we go vegan, instantly we can give back 40% of the land. And we'll also improve our health.
Yeah.
And we'll improve the planet, So that's the land system change. That's the fifth one. According to the Stockholm Resilience Center, it's the fifth loudest alarm.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it's actually louder than anything else because I believe they're not counting it right.
Okay. Where do you think that they're miscalculating?
I think they're miscalculating because they're looking at the total forest cover. They're saying it's 31%. But 22% is actually managed forests.
Okay.
Just pine trees all over, just teak trees, whatever trees you like, right?
Any old tree, just plant it.
Plant it and in plantations, literally plantations, and tick a box saying it's 10% tree cover. Any 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid, 10% tree cover is a forest grid, according to the UN.
Okay.
Okay, so you can see how people play games with this now, right? And so 31% is labeled as forests. And this is why the Stockholm Resilience Center is saying from 40-something% even to 31%, it's not so bad.
That's actually a huge loss. Still, from 41 to 30%, it's
right.
It's still a big change in
It's
transformation.
A big change. But majority of that is plantations, is not forests. Animals cannot live in plantations. They need a biodiverse forest to live in. This is why wild animals are down by so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so I really believe land system change should be high up. It's louder than even climate change.
Yeah.
And then the last one is freshwater change. We have taken over a lot of the fresh water for ourselves. We have dammed rivers everywhere. We have cut down forests so that the rivers have stopped flowing. And wild animals are dying for lack of water, from thirst. And so but the estimate is that that's killing less wild animals than other things, and therefore it's the last one. But there again, the water has been polluted with chemicals, and so all of those, it's just one big.
It's just a mess.
It's a messy wax.
And there's no sanctions, is there, on companies that are polluting? I mean, in the UK, we have so many different corporations that just pump, chicken shit, for want of a better word, into rivers.
Right.
And you can't go in them. You can't swim in them. You can't do anything. Right. This is like a serious problem.
Yeah. But I see all these corporations as just, branches of the big corporation.
Yes.
It's just one big corporation that's making a mess.
Yeah.
Right? And they don't know how to let go and how to create a planet B. So we have to help them. We have to create planet B. And so the fourth foundational myth is that fossil fuel burning is the leading cause of climate change. And fossil fuel burning may be the leading cause of CO2 emissions, but it's not the leading cause of climate change. Animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. Because fossil fuel burning emits CO2, carbon dioxide. It also emits SO2, which is sulfur dioxide. And sulfur dioxide is a cooling gas. Carbon dioxide is a warming gas. And sulfur dioxide stays in the atmosphere for a few weeks and disappears. Carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for a long time if you don't bring back forests. So what has happened now is that the amount of heating caused by fossil fuel burning has been cancelled by the amount of cooling caused by fossil fuel burning. So overall, my estimate is that from 1750 to 2020, fossil fuel burning has only caused 2% of the warming on the planet.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, because in the 90s as a kid, that was it. It was the ozone layer. It was the burning. So this has offset it, the cooling gas.
Yes. Cooling gases have offset the warming gases from fossil fuel burning. Whereas animal agriculture has been chopping down forests for 10,000 years. And it's put more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere than fossil fuel burning by a large amount. Okay. And between 1750 and 2020 also, if you just count starting from 1750 to 2020, animal agriculture is responsible for 66% of the heating that's been caused. Okay. And forestry is another 15%. So that's 81% between the two of them. And so the planet has been heated by about 2.6 watts per square meter through human activities. The sun is giving us 240 watts per square meter. So we've increased it as if the sun's intensity has gone up by 1%. Okay, which the sun normally does in 100 million years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We have done it in 100 years. I mean, in 250 years, right?
Yeah.
So that 2.6 watts per square meter. This is why there's climate change.
Yeah.
Okay. Of that 2.6 watts per square meter, fossil fuels have caused 2.3 watts per square meter, but they've also caused 2.3 watts per square meter of cooling. So it's roughly zero coming from fossil fuels, right? Animal agriculture costs like 2 watts per square meter. It's like, about 2/3 of that, right? Plus forestry put together. And then other agriculture is 10%, and then there's waste 7%, and so on. That's how you get to 100%. But in addition, animal agriculture has a huge opportunity cost, because every day we are eating animals, we're using animals, we are saying we don't want the forest to come back. Okay. And if you, instead of doing that, if you just use plant sources for our basic needs, then you can release 40% of the land back to nature, and the tree will be coming back. The trees will be coming back, the forest will be coming back, and it will be sequestering carbon. So that choice has an opportunity cost. And that's not being counted by the UN IPCC.
Well, it's eye-opening, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, it's Joseph Paul wrote about this, and it's like the easiest way that you can make a change and a difference is literally to go vegan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question.
Yeah.
Absolutely no question. And I think a majority of climate scientists know this.
Yeah.
Okay. I did a paper in 2015, so 10 years ago. We presented it at the American Geophysical Union fall meeting in San Francisco. And so my co-authors and I, what we did was we took a model in which there were grazing lands, and in the grazing lands, if there used to be a forest in 1800, we replaced the grazing land grid with the forest grid. So it's like in the model, we are pretending that the forest came back.
Yeah.
We just did that, and when we did that, we covered 41% of the land, of the grazing land, with forests, because there used to be forests in 1800. And those forests, if you could bring them back, they would sequester more carbon than we have added to the atmosphere since 1750. Just those forests.
Wow.
Okay? So that...
Just returning to what was already.
Yeah. And this is a simple thing that anyone can do in their models. Just go take your grazing land grid out and put the forest back there. And you calculate, and you'll see that it sequesters more carbon than you've added to the atmosphere since 1750. So I presented it. Said, see, there's a solution to climate change, right? And over 100 climate scientists came to talk to me during that talk and during that poster session. And they basically said, you're right, but it will never happen. So they have made a decision that people will never give up their meat. And therefore, they won't tell them that giving up their meat is going to solve the problem.
Do they not feel like a duty of care to be able to sense to people in it?
I didn't know why they would why would they assume that until I went to the banquet dinner. So the banquet dinner in 2015, I attended, and I had to wait half an hour for them to make my vegan meal.
Wow. Were they doing that to make a point against you? Or?
They had no vegan option at all. Okay, they had to. So the chef had to make a special pasta and tomato sauce or something and give it to me. A simple meal that they made, and the main options were either steak or lasagna with cheese.
Right.
And all the climate scientists were eating.
I mean, it's baffling if you're a climate scientist to not have at least come across the vegan argument. And is it just that they're so conditioned?
It's not conditioning. We have a saying in Tamil. It's possible to wake up someone who's sleeping, but it's impossible to wake up anyone who's pretending to be asleep. Why are they pretending to be asleep? Because their job depends on it. If they say animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change, they will lose their funding. They will lose their friendship with their fellow climate scientists. They lose their friendship with their parents, with their children. There's social pressure because, if you say this is the truth, folks, animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change, you get shunned.
Yeah. I mean, the irony is now funding's being pulled anyway, isn't it? Right. From anything to do with that, think Greenland and all of this, the funding's being taken away and shut down. And
ultimately, the truth will come out, right? And you better be aligned with the truth and tell the truth. So that's why I say the truth is animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change, always has been, always will be. And if the world goes vegan, all 6 of these planetary boundary transgressions will be pulled from red towards green. So you can put out the 6th alarm fire that's going on the planet if the world goes vegan as quickly as possible. The sooner you do it, the easier it will be. So it has to become a community effort. We help each other out, we help because some people don't know how to do it. And so we have to basically feed them.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what we do at Viva. There's so many different ways to come into this. We start with simple things like 7-day meal plans, just to get people who are a bit curious, who've maybe heard about it. You've got initiatives like Veganuary that are running, which is great for the kind of lay person. But then you've got to have different avenues, haven't you? And different ways to galvanize people because everyone's got their own reason eventually for coming into it.
Right, yeah. But if you think about how it's changed over the years, people are now talking about it. Right?
Yeah.
People are now joining Veganuary in more and more because people are aware that this needs to be done. A lot of people are aware that it needs to be done. They just don't know how to go about doing it. They're waiting for a mass movement to happen around them. And this is why I'm appealing to religious institutions. Take the lead. If you don't take the lead, the young people are going to shun you. Okay? Because if you will become irrelevant.
Yeah.
If you're not in the forefront of creating a thriving planet, if you're actually continuing the process of destruction with your rituals and your activities, young people will see no reason for religion.
It's true. I think it is true. And we've seen the decline in religions already. And I think Christspiracy that you co-produced was very interesting. And that's revealing a lot of the myths, that people have, especially around like Hinduism.
Right.
It's completely distorted, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's... Do you think that this is what is needed then? Education of the kind of old systems to modernize and to understand the danger, to then work with the younger people coming forwards. Do you think that's going to be enough?
No, it has to be a grassroots movement from the bottom up because it's not going to happen from the top down. They're going to wait until the people change before they change, right? Why would you do something that the majority don't want?
Yeah, true.
So we have to change. And so we have to now create grassroots movements that would promote veganism, promote healthy living. It's about our health. Our health is the other side of the same coin as planetary health. Okay, so I say each one of us has to become healthy. Every vegan has to adopt a healthy vegan diet, exercise regularly, do the disciplined work that you need to create a healthy body and a healthy mind so that we can be the best ambassadors for the movement. Okay, and then we have to create communities which promote these healthy behaviors, right? So it's actually much more than just diet. the American College of Lifestyle Medicine had listed 8 risky behaviors that are causing 15 chronic conditions responsible for 90% of the healthcare costs in the world. And the 8 risky behaviors are: 1, poor diet is number 1, lack of exercise, smoking, lack of health screening, poor stress management, insufficient sleep, poor standard of care, and excessive alcohol consumption. So I say do the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's all the addictions, isn't it, that you're talking about? Screen time, medical intervention, anxiety. It's
addictions, yeah.
Completely.
Because we are living in a system run by a mega corporation that's built its business on addictions. So I call it, Planet A is a company town.
Yeah.
And the company is in the business of addiction.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is why it's all addictive behaviors that are being, and so if you're growing the economy, 90% of the healthcare economy is caused by these 8 risky behaviors. So you have to promote these 8 risky behaviors. That's exactly what they're doing. So when we buy into the idea that, oh, you need to grow the economy in order to be happy, you're actually promoting this. Right?
That's interesting. Yeah, promote the addictions, then create the potential for curing them, which
Right.
isn't the actual cure. It could have just been to not bother in the first place.
Yeah, it's fixing the symptoms.
Yeah, absolutely.
They want to keep the patient alive,
Yeah.
but not cured.
Yeah, and not well alive, just
Too alive.
Yeah, and not too alive. So are you positive for the future?
I am.
Ask you that.
I am. I'm seeing this. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, what a mess. And we have been given the abundance to create a system based on the truths.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have given everything we need to create the system based on the truths. And it has to be done separate from that. You don't bother trying to change them.
No.
Just create something new. And it has to be based on the 4 foundational truths. That protein is found in all plant foods, have all amino acids, a complete protein. If you eat enough calories, you'll get enough calcium. Third, human well-being necessitates a sense of purpose. And the 4th is animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. And stopping fossil fuel use now is suicidal. It's very important to say that. Why? Because if we stop fossil fuel use now, if I wave a magic wand today and eliminate fossil fuels altogether and replace the exact same energy infrastructure with solar panels and batteries and so on, the heating on the planet will increase from 2.6 watts to 4.9 watts per square meter within a few weeks.
Why?
Because the sulfur dioxide that's cooling the atmosphere will disappear in a few weeks.
Okay.
And that sulfur dioxide was being emitted by fossil fuel burning. So the cooling disappears within a few weeks, and so the entire heating that the fossil fuels have caused will show up.
Interesting. So do we have to just sort of reduce it slowly and offset the same amount so that, as the heating reduces, so does the cooling?
Exactly. So it's a first order differential equation you have to solve, and you'll see it's an exponential function that you have. So basically the way you would do it is first go vegan as quickly as possible, and then suck down the carbon dioxide with trees. And as the CO2 level comes down and the heating on the planet declines, then dial down the fossil fuel use slowly, right? So that the heating comes down, you're basically maintaining the heating, but you're reducing your fossil fuel use until it goes to 0, and then you can bring it down. So that's how you would do it.
Amazing.
That's engineering 101.
Yeah, I know, but that's your background. It's great to marry the two.
To me, it's simple stuff. So why are people in power doing the opposite of what they should be doing? Do they not have any engineers working for them?
No, or common sense.
Any common sense?
I'm not an engineer, but it seems like common sense to me.
Do they not know that fossil fuels are emitting cooling gases? Do they not know this?
They surely should.
Do climate scientists not know this? Because there are climate scientists writing State of the Climate report saying rapidly phasing down fossil fuel use should be a top priority. And I'm saying, what?
No.
Do you not understand this? Why are you writing State of the Climate report if you don't understand this?
Yeah.
So, because it's basic stuff, simple stuff. And when the Even IPCC, in the summary for policymakers, says that fossil fuel burning has caused 85% of the emissions. They're only counting a few of the warming gases. They're not counting any of the cooling gases. Who does accounting like this?
Nobody. Well,
No.
yeah.
Right? It's blatantly corrupt accounting. And this is why on the cover of our book, there is this, it says, animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. And we don't believe anyone who says rapidly phasing down fossil fuel use should be a top priority, which is a quote I took from the 2024 State of the Climate Report. Because the reality is, we have been misled by the UN IPCC. So don't tell us that we have run out of solutions. And on Planet A, we have been reading this from the bottom up. Because when you read it from the bottom up, it says, we have run out of solutions. So don't tell us that we have been misled by the UN IPCC. Because the reality is, rapidly phasing down fossil fuel use should be a top priority. And we don't believe anyone who says animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. That's the story we've been telling on Planet A.
That's an incredibly compelling story as well. And I think that tagline is going to grab a lot of people's attention because you don't expect to actually hear that about the fossil fuel reduction. So I think that's a very powerful kind of, oh, that's a sit up and take notice moment.
Right, yeah. And and the data is in there, I've even given you all the tables so you can go look up the numbers and you can go calculate it yourself if you want. And you will notice that fossil fuels have cooled just as much as they've heated. So we have to thank them for doing that and then figure out how to dial it down slowly. It's not a good thing.
No.
Okay? It means that all the warming from fossil fuels we haven't experienced yet.
Yes. But no, it makes complete sense. The cooling's kind of working alongside it and to bring it down before completely switching. And it takes time as well for infrastructure to be built to adopt to that.
So in a way, it's a good news story, right? It's saying, hey, you don't have to do that right away. Go vegan right away.
That's the one thing that we can control. Every individual can control that, all right?
Yeah.
But it's taking accountability for yourself
and for your fellow human beings and then getting everybody healthy,
It's doing the right thing.
Doing the right thing, yeah. And especially in the UK, I hear the UK has a huge health problem.
Yeah. I mean, obesity and type 2 diabetes is massive. And there's a lot of young people now who are out of work due to like disabilities and things. And it's, there's a real crisis going on that isn't really talked about that much.
Right.
But yeah, the UK is facing some serious problems. My fear is that it's a way of being manipulated so that we go down the US healthcare system route.
Right.
But, there's a lot at play there.
Yeah. I mean, you know which way, I have my granddaughter did a illustration of humanity's, this is the hero story of humanity. Okay. So we have been heating the climate for the last 10,000 years, not just the last 200 years. Last 10,000 years we've been chopping down forests, burning them for agriculture and so on. And in the process, we have prevented the earth from going back to another glaciation. We've stopped the glaciation from happening.
Oh.
Okay, so we kept the temperature constant for 10,000 years. So we were the thermostat species, unknowingly.
Yes.
Okay, we kept the temperature constant for 10,000 years. And then over the last 200 years, we've increased it. And in the process, we have built all the thermometers you need, all the instruments you need to understand that that's what we have done. And now we have to stabilize the temperature and maintain it so that the earth does not ever have to go back to another glaciation again. So we are the thermostat species of the planet. We have the control of the thermostat and we have to now be responsible for maintaining it. So we have to grow up as a species.
Yeah.
Okay? Take on our true role as the thermostat species and do it consciously as opposed to unconsciously. And any sign of growing up, the sign of growing up is a sign of weaning. You have to wean from your mother cow.
Yes, you do. Yes.
She has fed us for 10,000 years.
If you're human, it's a completely different species. Really wean.
Just wean.
Yeah.
Think about it. I mean, I marvel at how did I get fooled for 48 years? For so long.
Yep.
Drinking milk, right? Because I was told that, you have to do it, it's for your health and so on. And when you think about it, this is the fluid that makes a calf grow to a cow in 18 months. And that cow is 5 times our size.
Yeah.
And we need to grow from baby to adult in 18 years. So that fluid is designed to make our body grow 50 times faster than it ever needs to grow. How can it possibly be good food for you?
No, it's exactly the same. It's like humans are being kind of injected, to create these super chickens that they choose that are too big to support their own weight. And you're like, that's crazy. And yet we're sipping it it's a minefield, isn't it?
It's mind-bogglingly stupid to be drinking milk. I mean, to me, right?
Yeah.
And I said, if I got conned for so long, how can I blame anyone?
Yeah.
So I didn't think about it also
No.
for so long.
But the number of people who are lactose intolerant, of course they are, because it's not meant for us.
See, even if you're lactose tolerant, even if you're able to do it, it's not good food for you. So it's regardless of whether if you're lactose intolerant, you're getting messages from your body saying don't do it. I was getting messages from my body saying don't do it. I had inflammation all over me. I had arthritis. I had sinusitis. I had all kinds of problems. I was taking pain medication every day, thinking this is what I have to do, for my life, for my well-being. And then when I went vegan, within a month, I lost all my arthritic pains. I lost all my sinus problems. I hardly get sick now, So you get back your health.
Yeah.
And then you realize, what was I doing?
Mm-hmm. It's a strange one. I've probably benefited without realizing, from being vegan. But in terms of I'm nearly 40 this year, and my friends, they say you've got so much energy. And so probably. It's a bit manic, or is it, but it's the kind of, you don't necessarily notice these things, do you? And I know that's not the case for every vegan, and of course not, but.
No, you can be unhealthy as a vegan also. So I say, when you're vegan, you have to go towards a whole food plant-based diet, take care of your health. Because you may have done it because of compassion for animals, but you're also an animal. Have compassion for yourself, right? So that's why I promote healthy vegan diet, whole food plant-based vegan diet, which is known to be healthy. And take your supplements, vitamin B12. And why take B12 through an animal?
Yeah, they never tell you what percentage of the B12 you get through the meat.
Right.
It's just a very, oh no, we don't go into that. It's just you have to get it from meat, yeah. But it's a byproduct in the feed.
Right.
So just take out the middleman, just does it the B12.
Yeah, right.
It's again silly. Like so many things.
So many things that are silly.
Yeah.
But maybe we can make fun of the system.
Yeah. Maybe that's the best way to do it. But please keep writing your books too.
Oh, thank you. We'll do.
Thank you so much for chatting to me.
So one more thing I wanted to show you in the book. The book is like this, but it's saying, the world is not such a terrible place as long as you look at it wrong. So please go on trains and read it upside down. So that everyone takes pictures of you. Take pictures of yourself reading it upside down and post it on social media.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Would you sign it for me?
Yes, I would.
Thank
I'd
you so
love
much.
to. Yeah.
Thank you so much for today.
My pleasure.